Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna add a little personalized touch here. Show my face. And hang on a second here, sorry. Here I am. How's everyone doing? Looks like we've got a good group on hand. They're still coming through the door. It's exciting. It's a beautiful, snowy Monday morning. If anyone really cares to see how lovely the weather is out in Ottawa, it's white, which is great if you're a skier and not so great if you want to stay warm. My name's Craig Bowasley. I'm the president of Eloqua Training, and I'm here to welcome you to our webinar this morning on website accessibility testing methodologies. I appreciate you taking the time out of your morning to join us. This presentation is in collaboration between ourselves, Eloqua Training, and our partners over at Crawford Technologies. Dennis Kwan from Crawford is going to speak a little bit later, so I'll just give you a quick who we are. I mean, our company is Eloqua. We've been on the market, or we've been in the business since 2002. We are a specialty training provider on how to create digital content. We have been one of the longest serving Adobe training partners in North America, and have been providing training on creating accessible digital content since 2003. So 1 year later, we rolled out creating accessible websites, and as well as how to create accessible PDFs. Ever since then, our portfolio and accessibility services has grown. It's matured. It's expanded to within the U.S. and Canada, from the sides of production services to consulting to teaching, and a whole lot of teaching. Today we've got about an hour scheduled, an hour and change. We're going to try to keep it tight and be sensitive to everyone's schedules. Mike Baudin is here with us today. He is Eloqua's senior web instructor and also teaches a tremendous amount of accessibility courses, develops courses, does accessible web work. So he's got a really, really wide view on what is accessibility from a technical perspective, and how to ensure that your content's meeting WCAG compliance. The presentation will move you through processes. You're obviously free to take notes. We do have a little bit of documentation to provide, but today our objective is to give you something to hold on to, that walk away with, that you could use as a foundation to create your own set of methodologies, set of testing steps. We are going to also, we'd like to talk to you later on about training planning, as well as testing, as well as document conversion services, and we will get to that a little bit later. So as we are ready, we've got about a great group of 31 on board. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mike Baudin from Eloqua Training to get started on our presentation. So and bear with me here. I'm a little bit of a newbie here on, okay, wait, there you go. And okay, thank you very much. And here is Mike.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Craig, for that introduction. Today we're going to be just talking about accessibility testing methodologies, and again, just making sure that everything is as clear as possible. Obviously, this is something we're going to talk about in 1 hour, and there's quite a lot more to learn, but hopefully this kind of puts you in the right direction. So Let's just jump right in there and get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is, again, the reason you want to go ahead and think about accessibility before you even get started on a project is because you don't want to waste money, right? Because at the end of the day, your content's going to need to be accessible. So it's something that you should probably think about right off the bat when you start producing content, instead of after the content is produced and then you have to end up wasting money. So if you take a look at number one here, we have the end user finds a WCAG violation on your digital content, either your PDF, your Word document, or even your website. Well, that equals to bad user experience, right? It's a bad customer experience, and the customer might actually just walk away, right? That's a possibility. Then you're going, okay, well, hopefully they don't take any legal actions against your organizations, because, you know, it's now within their rights in Canada and Ontario to take legal actions against your organization. Your content needs to be accessible, okay? And that's why we have this WCAG guideline to follow that we're going to talk about a little bit as well. So again, your organization then needs to validate the violation in question, which means, you know, manual and time consuming. Then you try to, again, find a way to fix the issue that pulls away valuable resources off your current work, right? And then you relocate it to fix the problem. So that means twice as much time as to do the same job. If you could have just done it correctly the first time, obviously that would have saved you a lot of time. And time, again, of course, is something that we don't want to spend twice as much time doing the same work. So quality assurance equals testing to ensure you do it right the first time, right? Get it right the first time and make your content accessible the first time. And there's obviously different steps to making that happen, right? So stage one, the importance of creating testing baseline. Well, first and foremost, what are you testing for? What are you making your content accessibly for? Now, this is where there is different levels of compliancy, and there's different guidelines out there at this time. So where do you guys fall in? Okay, well, it depends on the situation, but when it comes to the making content accessible, there's a standard guideline that is an international guideline. It's not just a Canadian guideline. It's, again, being used throughout the whole world. And that guideline is Web Content Accessibility Guideline, WCAG, okay? And there's WCAG 2.0, WCAG 2.1, and now we're talking about WCAG 2.2. So where do you guys fall in? Now, to keep it as simple as possible, most organizations in 2020 fall under WCAG 2.0, meaning your content needs to meet the guideline 2.0. Now, if you're wondering what's 2.1, what's 2.2, well, 2.1 was introduced back in 2018, and it's an update of 2.0. So it's not like 2.0 is gone. Every guideline that you needed to follow in 2.0 is also there in 2.1. But in 2.1, as you're going to see a little bit here today, a lot of the new criteria are to accommodate mobile users. And again, making content accessible is not making content accessible for just people with disabilities. It's actually making content accessible for everyone. And that does include you, me, my grandmother, someone on a bus, someone walking on the street using their mobile device, someone that's visually impaired that is using a screen reader to read out loud the content on the screen. So content needs to be made available to who? Everyone, and in a barrier-free environment, meaning they can complete the task without being frustrated, with a good user experience. Now, there is different levels of guidelines. In those guidelines, there's A, which means you need to meet. Plain and simple, the A criteria is everybody needs to meet to call themselves accessible. There's AA compliancy, which means, well, we probably want to meet these guidelines as well to call ourselves accessible. Now, for the legislations in Canada, that means, yes, you need to make your content accessible to AA compliancy. So you need to meet all the A criteria and AA criteria. Now, AAA criteria, some of them are kind of tricky and difficult to accommodate for. So none of them are mandatory, but there's a few of them that are easy to meet. And if you are able to meet them, you should be meeting them, right? Other ones are a little bit more difficult. Now, if you're in Ontario, and you're a private company that has more than 50 employees and serves to the public, then you're falling under AODA. Okay, so that means you actually need to make your content compliant to AA compliancy, WCAG 2.0 by January 1st, 2021. So that's coming up pretty soon, right? Now with COVID and everything like that, some people thought maybe this was going to be delayed, but it's not the case. Okay, that hasn't changed. So that's what, a month and a half away from now. Now, depending on where you are, the scope of your content, your user behaviors, what the desired outcome is, might be different. Okay, so the environment your website is in or your application is in does matter. Is your content management system even built to be accessible, for example? Is your framework that you're using, either Web4, for example, or Bootstrap, is that built to be accessible? That's something that you need to think about before you even pick a content management system like Drupal or WordPress to build your website. If we're going to use a framework, well, is the framework even built to be accessible to start with? Because one of the biggest excuses that we hear when we're doing audits is, well, we can't fix it because our CMS, the environment that we're in, we can't modify it and it's not accessible. Unfortunately, that is an excuse that doesn't matter. Okay, WCAG doesn't say, oh, you need to be accessible, except for if the environment you're working in is not accessible, that's okay. Well, no, that's not the case. If you are responsible for the content, if you're the one that's creating the content, that content needs to be accessible with, again, there's no excuse. Now, there's things that you can quickly identify to say, hey, okay, how are we doing? Are we even close to being accessible? So there's kind of like quick standards identifications that you can kind of look at. And some of them, I'm going to come back to this page, but, for example, do you have alt text on your images? Now, for anybody who doesn't know, alt text would be read out loud by a screen reader for visually impaired users that cannot see the screen. So what would they hear? For this example here, we have an image of George Washington, some content, and then some different options for the alt text to provide for visually impaired users to hear. So the content reads, because of his role as the Commander-in-Chief of American Forces in the Revolutionary War, and later the first president of the United States, George Washington, is often called the father of his country. Now, in this case, will we go with A, let's put image of George Washington in the alt text? Will we put B, George Washington, first president of the United States, in the alt text? Would we just leave it empty so that the screen reader ignores the image? They're blind, they don't need to see the image, right? Or D, George Washington. Well, in this case, there's really no gray area. Now, there is a little bit of gray area with alt text, but when it comes to these four options, there's three that are completely wrong for the situation that we're in right now. A, image of George Washington is wrong because you do not say image of, picture of, graphic of when it comes to the alt text. Why? Because the screen reader will automatically say this for you. So the screen readers like JAWS, NVDA, VoiceOver, they already know an image is an image. Thus, announce it as an image to the screen reader user. So JAWS will actually use the word graphic. So you'd hear image of George Washington graphic. VoiceOver, you'd actually use the word image. So you would hear image of George Washington image. Pretty repetitive, redundant. B, first and foremost, is wrong for two different reasons. Number one, we are repeating the exact same thing that's being said in the paragraph above. But more importantly, we are passing along more information to the visually impaired users than we are to the visual users. If we were to just look at that image of George Washington, is George Washington wearing a baseball cap saying first president of the United States? No, he's not. Maybe he's wearing a medallion saying first president of the United States? Nope, no medallion. A t-shirt saying first president? No. There is nothing in this image that is telling me he's the first president of the United States. And because of those two reasons, B is incorrect in this case. Now, the one that we hear the most is C. Well, they're blind. They don't need to see. They don't need to know there's an image there. Well, who are you to make the decision for that person? Here's a quick little thing about decorative images that you would typically leave the alt text empty as a decorative image. If an image is related to the content, in this case, the image is definitely related to the content. It is George Washington. If an image is related to content, provide alternate text. Okay. Don't make the decision for the visually impaired users if they want or not want to listen to the graphic. They have the ability to skip it if they don't want to hear it. Okay. They can quickly skip it. Trust me, they're really good at skipping things they are not interested in. Okay, just like we scan with our eyes very quickly, they can quickly use shortcut keys to bypass different things they're not interested in. So if you're on the fence, is this an image that should have alt text or not have alt text? Always fall on provide the alt text. So again, just checking if your images have the appropriate alt text. Oh, obviously the answer is D here in this case, right? Just George Washington. Okay, that's it. Yeah, so just looking at if my images have standards identification, for example, if they have alt text, then that's one way to know, okay, well, we're on a good path. Then you go take a look at your videos. Do my videos have closed caption? Do my videos have a transcript? Then I go say, okay, well, is my website built in a logical order? Those are all kind of things to quickly identify to see if we're on the right path of making our content accessible. Now, obviously, you can go and do a quick, full-out audit. For example, we do audits all the time here at Elko, and we test to make sure that their websites are built to be accessible. Okay, and more often than not, sorry to say, they're not. Okay, one of the criteria of the WCAG guideline that fails the most is just having valid HTML code. That's right, something that you should be doing, even if you don't care about accessibility. Most websites that we do audits for, I'd say over 90% of pages that we test will fail just having valid HTML code. And part of the criteria, the WCAG criteria, is having valid HTML code so that the screen reader renders the content correctly, the browsers render content correctly. So you'd be surprised how many websites out there fail the WCAG guideline. So what you need to do, well, you need to report. You need to build the proper document to report and share those findings with the right people that can do something about it. So an example of that would be, again, we have a lot of different courses that talk about different ways of reporting, but just a quick example of how you can quickly create a report would be, just explaining what you're testing for. Are you testing for WCAG 2.0, WCAG 2.1? Okay, and then again, just go through the criteria, and for the way I go ahead and do my audits, I go page by page, which makes it easier for the client to go say, okay, on this page we need to fix these issues, on this next page we need to fix these issues. So an example here is they're failing 4.1.1, which is a criteria, meaning you need to be compliant with this one, and you can see the different errors that they have here. The color contrast, probably one of the strictest criterias of all the WCAG criterias, is probably the color contrast. It is such a strict criteria where your content needs to be really high contrast with the background. So if, for example, you have a dark blue on a light blue, there's a good chance that it's not actually high enough color contrast to pass the guideline. So if we just take a look at a couple more examples in this report. 131 info relationship, probably the most important criteria in my opinion, which is having the right, for example, header structure. For visually impaired users that are actually navigating a website, the primary way for them to actually go through a website is actually through the headers of a website. The heading level 1, heading level 2s, heading level 3s. In HTML5, we have 6 different heading levels, but they need to be built in a proper way so that somebody that's visually impaired using a screen reader can navigate them efficiently. By the way, that's also good for SEO, which is never a bad thing, right? Search engine optimization, improving that at the same time as improving your accessibility That's a win-win right there. So again, color contrast, very, very common fail. Link purposes, even though it's a AAA criteria, it's a AAA criteria that is easy to meet, right? All those links that you have online that say read more, read more, read more, click here, click here, click here. Those are not really descriptive about where the link is going. It's not descriptive at all, actually, of where those links is going. So if you can make a link, instead of saying click more or read more or click here, be a little bit more descriptive about where it's going, just by reading the link alone, you're making your content significantly more accessible. How much? It's not harder. You just need to think about what the link should say. So again, just a little example. And one of the things I always do to make sure that the client knows that I didn't forget one of these criteria is at the end of the report, I talk about the criteria I haven't talked about, right? Because potentially they are being met. Or there are criteria that are for the whole website and not page per page, for example, like a bypass block. So some criteria are not applicable. There's no media. Well, there's no criteria to test for time-based media, audio control. If there's no time limit, there's no criteria to test for enough time. So again, just an example of a report that you would go ahead and send to the client or your web team so that they can go and do the adjustments, fix the issues that were encountered. So again, that would be an example of a full-on report. Now, like I said, there is different screen readers. Oh, one too many tabs here. Selecting the right technique, the right software. Well, JAWS is probably one of the most popular screen readers in the market. However, it's $800 to purchase, so not cheap, and that's American, not Canadian. So that falls, then you're like, okay, well, is there a screen reader on the market that I can use on a Windows computer that's free? And that's where NVDA comes in. NVDA is a very popular screen reader, and it is one that you can use for completely free. Now, if you're on the Mac side of things, well, you have VoiceOver. It actually comes pre-installed on every Mac. Guess what? If you have an iPhone, it's on there. If you have an iPad, it's on there. And if you're one of those people that have an iPod Touch, I don't know who that is, but hey, guess what? It's on there as well. You're like, Mike, well, I'm on Android. So does Android have a screen reader? Well, you can actually download a screen reader on Android. That's part of the accessibility suite. It used to be called TalkBack, but now they just call it accessibility screen reader. That's in the accessibility section of your settings that you can actually download. So yeah, pretty much there's no matter who you are, you have a screen reader available to use. Now, most people who are using a screen reader, 88% of them are also using a screen reader on their mobile device. So building your content to be accessible on mobile platforms is very important as well, as we're going to take a look at here in just a little bit. 78% of mobile users are on the Apple platform. Why? Well, it's kind of like the opposite of the rest of the world, I guess, right? But VoiceOver is a little bit more simplified than TalkBack, I would say. Maybe that's one of the main reasons. Now, personally, I have a 5-step process to test for accessibility. Okay, that's it. It's a 5-step process to see if the website is compliant or not with the WCAG guideline. The first thing I do is I just run my website that I'm doing the audit on through the W3C validator to see if the HTML code is valid. More often than not, it's not. Depending on how many errors I see here, I know how much work I have to do when it comes to the audit. If there's a few errors, okay, that's probably not going to be an audit that's going to take me a crazy amount of time. But if there is a ton of errors, I know that I'm probably going to need to keep an eye out for more and more issues. Now, again, running the code through the W3C validator, that's pretty simple, right? So I have a website here that we built for this session here today, specifically for you guys. And if I were to go through validator.w3c.org, this is a website that's available to anyone, and you could put any website to try to validate it to see if it has valid HTML code. This doesn't mean your website is accessible if it comes back with no errors. okay? What it does mean, it means it's on a, well, it's built properly when it comes to the HTML. So here you can see I have 2 warnings and 1 error. Now that 1 error is an error that's easy to fix, but it's an error. So I am failing criteria 411, for example, here in this case. It's actually failing another criteria as well, 1.1.1. So in this case, that error is actually failing 2 different WCAG criteria. The warnings are not necessarily errors, so that's not the end of the world. So that's step number 1. So obviously not so bad, right? If we take a look, the end result that we want, obviously, is that beautiful green check mark, right? So if we test another website here, I guess we'll just use ours as an example. The end result that we want to get is the document checked with no errors and no warnings were found. So that's a good start. That's just a start, however, okay? Then if we go take a look at step number 2, we run it through an accessibility checker. These checkers are there to help you identify different issues. Depending on the checker that you use, you'll get different errors. So Wave sometimes finds errors that Site Improve doesn't find, and Site Improve sometimes finds errors that Wave doesn't find. Most of the time they're the same. Most of the time they're the same. But these are not foolproof, and that's why we have 3 more steps afterwards. But they're great tools. So if I go ahead and turn on, for example, the Wave accessibility checker in Google Chrome, or for example, the Site Improve accessibility checker in Google Chrome, that are both free to use, free to download, I can just go ahead and activate it very quickly like this. And all of a sudden, I'm going to get some different issues on the left side here. So for example, I'm having an image without alt text. Bam, found that very quickly. Color contrast issues right here. If I go ahead and click on that, there is 7 color contrast issues on this page. Then if we go link identify only by colors, I have a link right here in a paragraph of text that is only identified by color. Well, why is that a problem for people who are colorblind? In this case, the link is, the only way I know it's a link is because it's blue. Now it's inside a body of text, and because it's inside a body of text, okay, that's where you should probably have that link underlined. I'm not saying every link needs to be underlined. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you have a link inside a body of text, the easiest way to let a user know it's a link is by underlining it, not using color as a reference. We're not also saying that you can't make it blue. You can make it blue, you can make it orange, you can make whatever color you want. But the color itself cannot be the way to pass along the information that this is a hyperlink. So again, quickly showing you different ways here, different things to look at, okay? Bypass block, there's no bypass block. Every time I go on this page, I need to actually, for users that are keyboard only users, I need to tab through every single link, okay? So a great example of a bypass block is actually CIBC. Okay, we're going to pretend they don't have one for the first instance. And let's say I wanted to go to my card number, right? I want to go to my account right here. If I'm a user that cannot use a mouse, I can only use a keyboard. And no, I'm not talking about a user that's visually impaired, because they have a lot of cool shortcut keys available to them to jump to different parts. I'm talking about I'm missing a limb. I can't use a mouse. I can only use a keyboard. Maybe it's even a foot keyboard. So I'm probably tabbing through the site, and I start tabbing, okay? I'm tabbing over and over and over, and look at that, okay? Could you imagine having to do this on every single page of your website that you have to finally get to the main content? That would be very tedious and frustrating, right? And I'm finally where I want to be. Wouldn't it be nice to have some sort of bypass block? Well, again, if you take a look, the first tab on their website is the ability to skip right there. So if I press enter, bam, I bypassed all of that. So again, that is the accessibility checker is actually telling me that I don't have one of those. I have link purpose. What is the link? Where's the link going? Okay, it's not clear. View details, view details, view details. I have the same link repeating the same time over and over again. Okay, so just a few little examples here. That's just the tip of the iceberg, okay? And yeah, the accessibility checkers will help you find different issues, but it won't find everything. And that's when you tab through the site, making sure everything you can do with a mouse, you can do with a keyboard as well. Once I do that, I then move on to the next step, which is scrubbing through the site, scanning the site, trying to find other issues like color contrast issue. You're saying, well, doesn't the accessibility checker find the color contrast issues? Yes and no. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Take a look at our slider here. You can see that I didn't get an error for this, but when it comes to the white font here on that black that background, it's not so good. Which also brings us to WCAG 2.1, which is all about mobile users, right? So if I go take a look at what this website would look like on my mobile phone here, you're going to notice that, well, it's not pretty. We probably tested the site visually on a user experience level, maybe on a desktop, but then I go on my phone and it looks something like this, a complete mess. Not only is it a bad user experience, look at that white space above, look at that. Now that text, I can't even see it, I can't even read it because that background is just not done properly. And the color contrast is just a complete mess. It's hard to read, not just for people with low vision, but just anyone. Also, that carousel is automatically playing both on desktop and mobile. And I probably don't even have enough time to read all the content. That carousel shouldn't auto-play like that. Or if it does auto-play, I need a way to stop it. Stop. And it won't. In this case, it won't. Okay. I scroll down a little bit on the page. Okay, there's more content. It's probably not aligned properly for mobile users either. All right, not the end of the world. I can kind of access some of it, right? Then I go and end up on a different page. I go on the artist page, and well, first and foremost, we have images, text. That could be problematic for visually impaired users. They don't know what the artist is. And one of the worst things, and one of the new criteria in WCAG 2.1 is making sure that your website is optimized for mobile experience. All of a sudden, a mobile user comes on here and, whoa, what's going on here? How many times have you guys seen this? Eh? Horizontal scrolling on a mobile site. That's not a good user experience right there. All this white space. And I'm starting to doubt this company now. I'm starting to doubt, is this a legit company? Like, am I going to buy something from these guys? Probably not. I don't feel confident they can't even build the website properly. And the reason for that is because if I scroll a little down, I have a table, and the table is pushing everything to the right. Well, I'm not saying don't have a table, but build your tables so that it's responsive. So the table has the scrolling, but the rest of the website doesn't, right? Now we have some images and some links. They both say read more. I don't really know the difference between the two links. Again, not so good. So again, I'm scrubbing through the site to find different issues like that. Okay. The language, is the language set properly for visually impaired users? Is the screen reader going to try to read it correctly? The lists, are they built as lists? Are they announced as lists? Right? So at the end of the day, you can always use a screen reader to make sure that the content gets read out loud. So just a quick 5-step process there, talking about how you can go about testing for accessibility. Now, obviously, there is new criteria in WCAG 2.1. And just to give you a few examples here, orientation. You can't force a user to use their phone in landscape or portrait. They are able to use it in whichever directions they want. Identify input purpose. How many of you fill out a form, and sometimes you go to a form and you want to auto-complete it, but you can't. You can't auto-complete it. That's pretty frustrating, right? It's pretty nice to have the ability to just click auto-complete, bam. Well, if the website is not built properly, that's not going to be possible. That's a good user experience at the end of the day as well, right? So again, an example of input purpose there. Now we don't have time for the AAA, so I'm not gonna talk about the AAAs, but reflow, basically have a responsive website that's built properly. I just showed you the table example. Hey, we have a mobile website. It's optimized for mobile. We build it to be optimized for mobile. And then you go on the website and there's all this white space, all this horrible design that's not optimized for mobile. It's somewhat responsive, but there's horizontal scrolling going on everywhere. Not good. Color contrast, right? If we take a look at color contrast, it no longer applies just to text. It actually applies for that focus. Take a look. We have gray on gray for the location of my cursor right now, my focus. That is no longer compliant. Okay, so if I'm tabbing through here, it's hard potentially for people who are low vision or colorblind to see the difference between this color and this color. So that would not actually pass color contrast in this case. Spacing. Is there enough space between your content? Okay. Typically, your paragraphs spacing should be 2 times the font size. Okay. Text line height, 1.5 times the font size. Word spacing between words, 0.16 times the font size. Okay. So again, these are all pretty specific numbers. Most of the time, that's not really an issue, but it could be. And then you end up with something looking like this. It's not so good. Doesn't read, not easy to read. Okay. Content on hover. If I'm hovering over an element, can I dismiss it, for example? Is it easy to dismiss it? It might look good on a desktop. So if I take a look here, we have tabbable elements here. If I click on this, it pops open. Great. I click outside, goes away. Click on this, click on it again, disappears. This is the one that's a problem. Doesn't look like a problem. I can pop it open, pop it close. But then I go on a mobile website. I'm on a mobile screen. I click on it, and there's no way for me to dismiss it because on a mobile, I can't click on that button again. It goes on top of it. So again, another issue. Other 2.1 criteria example, shortcut keys, right? Let's say I'm on a website and I make it so that when a user, look at how ugly that is, eh? Optimized for mobile, not so much. Looks fine on a desktop, not so good on a tablet, and definitely not good on a mobile. Now to that shortcut key, I make the user hit Control M on their keyboard, and bam, I just put M and it creates a shortcut key. But what if the user wants to write, I don't know, Microsoft? They want to write Microsoft in this field. I put M and all of a sudden it triggers an action. Well, that's problematic. Hopefully common sense comes in for that one. Hopefully none of you have that issue. Other things to keep in mind, pointer gestures, right? If I want to be able to zoom in and zoom out on a map, for example, can I do that with just one single finger? Because potentially on a mobile platform, I don't have access to 2 fingers to pinch in and pinch out, right? Well, for example, Google Maps has finally updated with the plus minus, nice big plus minus that are easy to click on mobile. This is new, wasn't there. If you go back a year, their embedded maps didn't have that zoom in and zoom out, okay? You actually had to pinch in and pinch out or double click to zoom in, and then there's no way to double click to zoom out, obviously. So again, making content more accessible to more people, including mobile users. So we have quite a few different criterias. Pointer cancellation. When I click on a link, let's say I go to the homepage here, I click on a link. Did you guys know that if you move your mouse away after the click, when you're still clicking on it and letting go, it cancels that action. Click, move away, let go, cancel the action. That's what you want. You want to allow the user to say, no, oh, actually, I didn't want to click on that. What you don't want is this. I'm going to click and try to move away, but I can't because that link is actually triggered as soon as I touch it and not let go. So again, that is one of the new criteria. Point of cancellation in 2.1. Label the names. What I see on an image of a button that's controllable by a user, by the way, you shouldn't have text on an image like this, but if you are, is that what the screen reader will say out loud? Is that what I'm going to hear? Other things like motion actuation, forcing the user to shake their phones, probably not a good idea. Okay. Target size, again, concurrent input mechanism, those are AAAs. And then status message, right? Is the user aware of content change on the page? So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the screen reader here for the first time. And we're going to play the lottery here for a second. But I'm going to actually break it first. And then I'm going to go ahead and fix it afterwards. And you're going to hear the difference between before and after. So you get a bit of an understanding of why it's important, again, to build your content to be accessible for all users. So turning on VoiceOver, which is a screen reader on the Mac.
Accessibility options. VoiceOver on Chrome, Mike's whiteboard, Google VoiceOver off.
I don't want this guy. I want Samantha Compact. I like Samantha.
Accessibility options.
VoiceOver on Chrome, Mike's whiteboard, Google Chrome.
Much better, right? All right, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly navigate through headers on my screen, and I can do that with the shortcut key.
Heading level 2. Toolbar, heading level 2. Example of ARIA pressed, heading level 2. ARIA example for alerts, heading level 2. Content change, heading level 2. Font awesome, heading level 2. Form placeholder example.
So I'm quickly going to jump a little bit lower down here, okay, just to save us a little bit of time.
Chrome has last name, edit text with autofill menu, email, require, leaving menu, entering my.
So I'm on the submit button here.
Button, Mike's whiteboard.
And if I press enter,
please enter your email address.
This gets read out loud properly here in this case. And because it gets read out loud properly, you can hear it. The visually impaired users can hear it and understand that, hey, I need to provide my email address. If I go a little higher up here, where's my play lotto? Right over here, okay? So I'm just gonna go quickly jump to play lotto.
Leaving my confirm button. Amount you want confirm button. Link. Download. Chrome has link. Amount you link. Last name, first name, click just 5. Play Loto button.
All right, so I'm right here. And if I press enter, this shows up, but you don't hear anything. Okay, you don't hear anything, and that is a problem right there. So just a little example there. 1, 2, 3.
Application. VoiceOver off.
Bring back my little presentation here. So that's status message. Some content might appear dynamically on the screen. Does the screen reader identify that content? Is it able to read it out loud to the end user? Okay. So it's important that when you do your reporting, it's clear, understandable. Okay. What is your goal? Do we want to make our content accessible to A criteria, AA criteria? Are we doing our content to be accessible both internally and externally? The scoring system, obviously, you need to fix all the A criteria first, second, AA criteria second, and AAAs, well, that would be nice to have, but concentrate on what you have to do at all costs. So that's just a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of something to make you guys think about why accessibility is so important. And it's not just for people with disabilities, it's for everybody, including mobile users, as you saw. We had an okay experience on a desktop, but on a mobile, completely broken. Now, we actually offer you guys some help, right? You can actually, no membership, no fees, no nothing. You can ask us questions. We have an Q&A part of our website where you can actually ask us questions. So hopefully that gives you a better understanding of what we can do. Before I kind of wrap things up, I just want to kind of go through one page with the screen reader just to show you a little bit of an eye-opener about why making content accessible is important. And these are all things that we've found on different websites that makes it a very bad user experience for all users. So I'm going to turn on screen reader one more time here before I give things back to Craig here, just to show you an example of how bad things can be. So if I visually look on the home page here, things don't look that bad. I mean, it's not the nicest looking site in the world, but looks fine. But if I turn on voiceover, you're going to notice we have quite a few different issues. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3.
Accessibility options.
VoiceOver on Chrome, WCAG 2.
And I'm just going to go ahead and navigate through the site here.
Heading level 1. One more for good measure. Heading level 1 2 items. WELCOMETO Lucidifine accessories.
Well, that's spelled out everything. That's not great. All right.
Heading level 1. One more for good measure.
I have another heading level 1. I should really just have one heading level 1 per page. The heading level 1 is actually the name of the page. It's the title of the page. Shouldn't have multiple heading level 1s.
Heading level 1. Heading level 2. Bruce Terrence.
Okay, it's not so bad. I'm gonna tab through the site now.
Visited. Search. Button. Learn more. Previous. Next. View details. View details. View details. Button. Chrome has new window.
Now I have 3 links that say the exact same thing.
View details.
What's the
button.
What's the difference between them?
View details. View details. Button. Chrome has new window.
Again, hard to know. All right, I'm gonna go a little bit lower down here. Take a look at the graphics down here. Let's see what happens here if I navigate to the graphics.
To get missing image descriptions, open the context menu. Unlabeled image.
Was that clear about what that is? That it's a phase vase? Nope. Let's go to the next one.
Spacer image.
I don't think so. The alt text is incorrect in this case. Let's go to the next one.
BNIA 0003 JPG image.
Well, hopefully you understand what that means, because I don't. That's right. It read the name of the file because the alt attribute is missing completely. Never the right answer here.
Double candlesticks image.
Hey, we finally have one. That's right. Keep going down a little bit more.
One world, one mission, one piece at a time. Lucidifine accessories.
Okay, not so bad. And then get to the footer here.
Horizontal link. Back to top. Copyright sign 2020 Lucidifine accessories. Ink middle dot. Chrome has new window.
That's a lot of copyrights. Copyright sign, copyright sign. A little repetitive, just a little repetitive. So it's not the greatest experience. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. So
VoiceOver off.
that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I'm going to hand it back to Craig. Yeah, hopefully this is an eye opener for you guys. And obviously we're here to help. Okay. So Craig.
Great. Thanks, Mike. I'm just going to go back here. We got, okay, so thank you very much for that. That was great. I hope everyone picked up a few tips on what not to do and what to do. We're going to, again, as I mentioned earlier on, is we're going to send out some of this information to you guys so that you can have it as a little bit of a toolkit and, build your presentations upon that. We're obviously here as well to help with any guidance that you might need on creating any sort of testing methodology. We've got a couple of next components to this. I've got the Dennis Kwan from Crawford Technologies. Of course, Dennis is the director of the Document Accessibility Solutions. And Dennis would like to take a few minutes to talk to everyone a little bit about document accessibility remediation. After that, I will like to take a few minutes of your time towards the end to talk about how to create a good training plan, an affordable training plan to roll out WCAG training, technical training to your staff without breaking the bank. And at the end of the presentation, I'd like to also talk to you guys about a little bit of a thank you token, a gesture that we'd like to extend to you. So we'll get that right at the end. And again, we're doing well here. We're at about 20 after 10. So we should be wrapping up a little bit after 10:30ish or so. And we're going to, if you have questions, we're going to be here, and we will be here for as long as you need us to be here to answer anything that is on your mind. So make a note of it. We just want to make sure that we can get through these presentations so that anyone who does need to leave right away can, and those that want to stick around for the questions and answer session can do that as well. So Dennis, I hope you're ready for me. I'm going to hand it over to you. Dennis, you're on.
I'm on. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Let me see if I can share my webcam here since I decided to dress up a little bit this morning. So there's me. Well, good morning, and thank you, Craig, very much for inviting us to this. Mike did a great job in talking about testing and everything that's associated to the web side of things. I mainly focus on the document world, and really it's important, again, because, and I'll go through anecdotally and talk a little bit with you about some of the things that we do in the space of document testing and making those documents accessible. So I'm Dennis Kwan. I focus on the accessibility portion of things with Crawford Technology, and we work hand in hand with Craig's team because, education is critical at the back end of all this as well. So we provide software and services, everything from document remediation for the digital world to traditional alternate formats. And we link up to, obviously large corporations that have large amounts of documents that need to be processed. When we talk about this, everyone kind of asks me, why do your websites need to be, accessible? And certainly Mike's done that. But, a lot of people forget about the fact that you have a bunch of PDFs or even HTML5 documents on the back end. And those too need to be made accessible as well. If you think about this, with COVID and everything, more and more people are accessing, e-presentment type solutions. Web banking is a great example. Your insurance, your telecom bills, everything has gone online. And a lot of this stuff has personal and confidential information on it. And beyond that, I mean, just think about those published documents that are out there. There's thousands and millions of PDFs on sites everywhere. So as Mike said, you may run a scan on a site and you may pass your HTML5 in terms of your website, but you may have tons of documents that are there that are downloadable, fillable, whatever the case may be, and they need to be made accessible as well, especially if they have personalized information on them. So as Mike said, retrofitting is very expensive. It almost is 10 times the cost to retrofit something on the back end if you're doing it. So really we encourage individuals and organizations to really build inclusion at the front end more than anything else. One of the things that I'll talk about as well is things like drive-by lawsuits that are happening. In Canada, we have a lot of regulations like the Accessible Canada Act that came into place in June last year. Certainly, Mike talked about the January 1st, 2021 AOTA requirement for digital accessibility. Any website has to be WCAG compliant to minimum 2.0 AA. And we're seeing just so much work come through at this point in time because everyone's rushing for it. A lot of people also say at the same time, the folks at AOTA haven't been really out there. We can actually tell you quite differently. Even though they have a limited amount of enforcement, we do see a lot of drive-by lawsuits that are still going on. In fact, in southwestern Ontario, there are people that are doing careers of just hitting websites and looking at documents. Last year, in fact, we had worked a lot in the Florida area where there were over 250 lawsuits and settlements on every single county, town, and city out there because their PDF files were just not compliant. They had thought about their websites, but unfortunately, they did not think about their PDFs that were out there, and these frivolous lawsuits were hitting everyone. So, from a Canada, US side, there is a lot of regulations that are in place right now, and there's been a significant amount of litigation that has occurred in the US side. So, I think we talked about the fact that, this is a good thing. It's the right thing to do. It benefits not only folks that are visually impaired, low vision, cognitive disabilities, but it also helps us. We talk about things like ramps and, automatically opening doors in our physical world out there. And certainly those things help everyone and are to the benefit of anyone. But if we really look at it from the perspective, there are over 1.3 billion people that have some form of disability out there in the world. They're actually the largest group out there that have, a strong spending power. And the reality is, a lot of organizations are focused on really trying to slice and dice who they have to target. Folks that have a visual disability are certainly a large group out there. And, as we're an aging population, both in Canada and the US, we certainly see the need for, providing these types of services. As you get older, you'll never know if you're going to lose your vision. And, the need to have this type of technology in place is critical, especially when we're talking about digital technology and using assistive technology. So these numbers, people with disabilities in the US, for example, Americans, Hispanics, African Americans, and so on, are smaller than the disabled population out there. And, a lot of from the Canadian side of things, we have a lot of things in place at this point, and, you're going to maintain this lifelong customer. So there's been great studies out there, and I'm just going to show you really quickly here, one by Michelle Yin and Cynthia Overton and Dahlia Schwartzwitz, about the hidden market, because, we're an aging population, and certainly the need for accessibility for documents and websites is critical. But I think, one of the critical questions that you got to ask yourself, if your website's not accessible and these documents are hidden behind it, you're really going nowhere. So what Mike talked about is critically important. You got to get your website accessible. Then you've got to make all your documents accessible, whether you're using a content management system or an enterprise archive management system. Things that are out there and you're trying to reach that population, it's critically important. So we talked about that and how to make compliance, and this is really important at this point in time. As I said, there are tools out there that are downloadable, and these folks out there are using them to find websites that are not compliant and ultimately launch lawsuits against them. So really, it's important to do your testing. It's really important to find and understand the health of your websites as far as documents are concerned. You may have thousands and thousands of documents, and that means thousands and hundreds of thousands of pages of documents out there that are not made accessible. Things like this, forms, information, invoices, we have user guides, we have maybe things like infographics, utility bills, this is a huge area as well to be made inclusive. And certainly, we have marketing materials and marketing content that are aimed at the aged, like these, like extended care type information and so on. And those are critical to be made accessible because, ultimately, you're trying to be sure that they're focused on it. When we talk about what we do in our business, we're mainly talking about PDFs. And PDFs have had a bad rap for many, many years, ultimately, because a lot of folks have scanned PDFs, made them into images. There's no alt text, as Mike talked about. And, there's no way that assistive technology can really go through it. But, more and more now, people understand how to make a proper PDF, which is an ISO 32000 PDF. And essentially, what we do is add the metadata, as you can see here, in behind these PDFs, so that a assistive technology like JAWS or NVDA can navigate effectively to find what's the heading in this. I don't want to spend a lot of time maybe reading my address because I know where I live, but certainly I want to find out how much I owe or how much have I made this month as far as a wealth statement is concerned. So, the user experience on a document is almost as equal to that of one of a website, and you really have to be able to test for this. There are tools to test this. And certainly those are important in this whole process. So we talk about the fact that, you want to meet compliance and some of the rules and regulations like WCAG 2.0 AA, 2.1, are all part of that as well. And certainly there are other regulations as well, but one of the critical things we focus on is around just usability. Any checker can meet compliance. I can tag an entire document by putting one single tag there and it'll pass if I tag the entire document. But is it usable? Not usable. Is it really compliant? Probably not. Is it accessible? Probably not. So these are the critical things that we focus on in the world of compliance when you're creating documents. And we always talk about the fact that, if you can create a document maybe at the authoring stage, that's probably the ideal place to start from. And as I said, retrofitting on the back end, while we do a ton of millions and millions of pages annually for this, it's important to really consider what the strategy is in this challenge ultimately. So with that, we can talk about automated checkers. There are things like PAC 3.0. Adobe Acrobat Pro DC definitely has, built-in checkers and so on. But they only really go as far as, how good that you meet your compliance. And certainly they don't talk about the usability factors. In our world, there are some critical things that you have to really focus on to meet the requirements of use of these assistive technologies that we're talking about here. Screen readers, Mike talked about, the iPhone voiceover. We talked about things like JAWS and NVDA, non-visual desktop access, and so on, or even refreshable braille displays. These are critical tools for those that have low vision or blind or even have a cognitive disability to use to navigate, without a mouse ultimately, and navigate content that is out on the digital world. So we talked about, iPad, iPhone, using these tools like VoiceOver and the dial and so on. But these are some of the critical guidelines that Mike has gone over. And in the document world, these are not necessarily standards, they're guidelines. There are best practices against these as well. And certainly, with AODA coming up in January 1st, 2021 in Ontario, WCAG 2.0 AA is your minimum standard requirement out there. And certainly, as we talk about 2.1, 2.2 Silver, we begin to see the incorporation of other guidelines like PDF UA, which is universal accessibility. This is an ISO standard. It's a little bit more prescriptive. And we talk a lot about the fact that, organizations that are trying to make their documents accessible perhaps should hit both guidelines, PDF UA, as well as, the WCAG standard. The WCAG standard, however, in 2.1 still hasn't been defined for documents. And, so using best practices in terms of success criteria to achieve a higher level is critically important so that, your documents, if you're talking maybe 3-5 years down the road, there'll be new standards coming and you're going to be able to ensure that you have the right document and the right document accessibility baked into it so that you don't have to maybe go back and remediate some of these documents. The other critical thing in this world is also the fact that, software like VoiceOver, JAWS, NVDA, Windows Eyes, and so on is going to be more and more popular. We see that on mobile devices, definitely for VoiceOver and TalkBack and the new Android type solutions that are out there. But for a user out there or an organization, you really want to be able to begin to find, what are your documents? How can I fix them? And what is the best way to test for them? So when we talk about this, there are a lot of things like fails, automatic fails that will occur. For documents, we talked about the fact that contrast is an issue, read order is an issue, alt text not having information or proper information based on how the preferences are set up in those screen readers. And things like complex tables are major issues as well. So while you can pass everything electronically, we tell all our teams and all our clients, you really have to go through user testing as well. Without user testing, you can set the minimum level of usability or compliance, and ultimately it doesn't have a great user experience as you know. So we saw that in the website world, and it's very similar in the document world. One of the things to also consider is the fact that organizations have a lot of people that put a lot of documents online. They are independent, and they may not be accessible. You may also want to consider doing health checks on your documents as well and your website to find all the documents to figure out if they are WCAG 2.0 compliant or not. So that's critically important as well. So as we talk about testing and quality assurance, make sure you do a combination of both electronic testing as well as user-based testing. There was a great anecdotal story that's currently in the news right now. Conduit, which is a large organization, had actually won the business to program the state of California's camping reservation system, and part of it was they needed to have accessibility baked in. Unfortunately, they did not bake it in. The state spent $65 million on building this website. There's a civil lawsuit in play, as well as obviously a compliance lawsuit for the contract that's upwards of that, multi-million dollars. So lawsuits range in the multi-million dollars in this space. And certainly settlements for the Florida situation are on average anywhere from $20,000 to $25,000 to be done. So it's important that you consider testing, and especially usability, and making sure that your documents are fully accessible. So that's it for me, Craig. I'm going to throw it back to you, and thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Thanks. Appreciate your time, and love working with you guys as usual. I'm going to bring it back to myself here. And yeah, we're going to talk about training plans. So let's get my presentation up here. Hope you can all see that. I'm going to whip through this. I'm going to send you the deck as well. And as I mentioned, we're always here to talk and help with people with giving them guidance on building a training plan. But it's an interesting stat that I came across with regards to a recent study on digital accessibility and how only 20% of organizations are outsourcing accessibility training. And over half are listing training as an issue, so it's not being addressed, obviously. And then, of course, their number one challenge, is incorporating accessibility early in the development life cycle, which kind of brings us back to maybe is that because of a lack of training? Who knows, right? But I just thought that was kind of interesting to get started because training is important. So when we look at building a training plan. You could break it down into a bunch of different ways, but you know what I'm going to do? Actually, I'm going to also put my video on here so that get a little more me. Hi. So there's some bullets here. These are sort of the most common ones. You could do research and find lots of infill bullets, but when it comes down to it, you got to figure out what it is that you need, what kind of training you need for individuals, and the delivery mode, and there's so many options: web-based, in-person, on-demand, ILT. There's your budget, and it's how much you really want to spend. Can you afford to train everybody? Do you do private training, or do you just go for off the shelf public training? How do you procure all of this when you have a large scale rollout? You've got content considerations, like who needs to be taught and what. Do we need specific training, or do we just need to get the basics or the intermediate level and get going? Timelines, now, later, off hours, during work hours. What can you afford as far as time goes? That's being in the business for coming up to 19 years. These are budget and time is one of the most key components that hold organizations back from getting the training they really need. And then there's the effectiveness. Like, did the training meet your requirements? Did your personnel walk away with learning something, or did they just learn about something? And that's pretty key, right? I mean, a webinar, we're teaching you about this. If you want to come and learn about web testing, we do that in a day or two. That's training, right? I know there's a trend for micro learning these days. 3 minutes. Well, what are you really going to learn in 3 minutes? Nothing. So. And then there's the administration. Those of you who do any administration on behalf of people, teams, it's like you got to search for a provider, you got to procure it, you got to maybe set up a contract. There's paying purchase orders, there's flushing out your budget and going back to whomever to ask for more money and pleading your case. There's registering people throughout the year and coordinating. That's very, very time consuming. So now, training planning in 2021 is a little bit different, right? I mean, needs assessments and learning objectives, that hasn't really changed. Your delivery option has changed. Hey, we've got an office here. Guess what? No one's coming in. So everything is web-based. 100%. The good thing is that's something that we've been doing since 2010. We've been delivering web-based live instructor-led training, and so that is, those should be your only options at this stage when you're looking at a training provider. Of course, the pros is there's no travel, there's no traffic. You could learn in your pajamas. I don't know if anyone's seen that BMO commercial lately, but it's pretty funny. And then of course you've got live instructor-led versus video on demand. There's pros and cons to that. Live instructor-led training is still the king. It is the best way for organizations to learn, people to learn. It's been tried and proven. On demand fills a need though, so it's not necessarily bad. It's just as far as maximizing learning in a given time frame. That is exactly like live instructor led is the way to go. Then we've got budgets. Budgets are scrambled. We know that. You don't know how much money you're going to get next year. You don't know if you have money next year. You're not sure if you have to give up money for the rest of your fiscal year. Who knows what's going to happen, in the coming months. Content hasn't really changed. Timelines, that's a little bit different. We find that teams are decentralized and training is maybe a little bit more individual versus teams. We'd like to see the team concept come back, but we're seeing a lot of individual people looking for requests versus, the collaborative training effort from organizations. And then, of course, measuring effectiveness. I mean, that's kind of the same. You don't want you don't want to let off the gas on that. And then the admin, the admin is the same, but it's fragile. Like people, do less with more. That's you've got other things to worry about than registering someone for a course. So how do you get beyond that, right? What is the answer? Well, the answer would be, taking your time, finding a provider, looking at, instructor-led training. It's looking at budget. Maybe you can get, a full-size rollout versus, individual courses here or there. Something that is really budget sensitive, so that if you, for whatever money you have left over, whatever money you're going to get, you can use that to maximize the amount of instruction you're going to get for your entire team. The content, that needs to be sharp. It needs to be on point. No one's got time to wait. The timelines, again, you need to fit things in your schedules. You need to have on demand to support someone who might not be able to take time away from work and wants to do something a little bit off hours. And then you need to make sure that you have all those instructor-led live courses so that you can get that engagement with the instructor, get the engagement with, the other class participants, learn, ask questions on the spot, be clear right away instead of walking away from an on-demand course going, I think I know what to do. And the effectiveness, your ROI. I mean, you're never going to know if a course is going to be good until after, you attend, so what can you do? You have to vet the provider. You want to go to someone who's, organizations or trainers who have been in the business for years, who have track record, who have, done a good job, who service, reputable clients, not on a one-off basis, but on a recurring basis to sort of, so that you feel a little bit comfortable knowing that, these people have been trusted over the years by people, accredited, what have you. And then from an administrative standpoint, ultimately, if you could deal with one provider, make one payment, so you don't have to go asking for more budget, a budget-conscious training package, where you can get the training you need and not just the training you can afford. And you know what? If you could pull that off, you become the training hero. Procurement, CFOs, controllers, they love to see that people internally are being fiscally responsible and spending company money wisely and getting more out of it. So I bet you figured this was coming, right? This is exactly what we do. So we do everything that I've talked about. We Eloquo, having been in the business for 18 years, Adobe's top training partner in North America. We used to be a Apple partner, Microsoft certified instructors. We feature everything that I've talked about, and we have a couple clients online with us today that I think can vouch for the quality of our training. but I also want you to know that we're here to help people with developing a training plan. And this is, so if you want to work with us, that's great. If you just need support in creating a training plan and identifying, the people on your team and the different roles, whether you have document producers or form developers, web developers, whether it be web content or apps or forms, whether you have e-learning professionals and video professionals, or just people that are making spreadsheets and Word docs. We have 25 different courses that pertain to that. So we know, the different facets, the different areas that digital content producers fulfill, the different roles. And we've been working with these people for many, many years. So when it comes down to developing a training plan, for your team, if that's something that you need to understand is, what kind of courses do I give this person? What kind of courses would I give to this person? That's the type of planning that we do, irregardless of whether you end up working with us or not. And but these are like just very, very key messages that you want to focus on. And just to wrap it up, again, like I said, I'm going to give you, this. That's the wrap for now. I want to thank you for all attending. I'd like you to know that we're going to be contacting you as a follow-up. We do appreciate the time that you spent with us, and especially for those that have stuck around for the entire hour and change, and we've gone over time, and I apologize for that. But as a token of our appreciation, we would like to offer you each at least a free course with us. No strings attached, no commitment necessary. Just, here's a course. Thank you. Enjoy it. Do what you can with it. Hopefully we can help someone out, teach someone something. So if you want to stick around, we are going to take questions. You can do a show of hands. We can unmute you remotely here. And if you are going to leave, I would like to wish any of the Canadians here a happy cold remainder of the week, and for all of our American friends online with us, I'd like to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Big day tomorrow. If you're traveling, I hope you travel well and enjoy your holiday. So let's open up the floor to some questions. If anyone has something, you can maybe you can just chat me in the chat box, and then I'll unmute your mic. So, yeah, who would like to know something? Who's got a question for Mike, Dennis, or I? Someone. It's awfully quiet out there, folks. Anyone? Anyone? You know what's next, right? Bueller? No questions? Do we give it another 10, 15 seconds? No? Aw. Well, I hope that is a sign that we've given you a lot of information to think about, and that maybe our information was complete. I hope that's the case. Anyways, so I think we'll wrap it up then. If anyone has a question once we sign off, please send us an email. Also, look for delivery, us sending you the content for some slides and some information from today's presentation. As well, we will follow up with a phone call to all the attendees with regards to getting you guys set up with that free course. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and hope everyone is doing well. Take care. Bye-bye.